Okay, picture this. It's the 6th century. The deserts of Arabia are kind of the backyard of the world's great empires. Who could have possibly guessed that from this very landscape, a new civilization would just explode onto the world stage? Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're going to take a 1,000-year journey through the caliphs, the conquests, the incredible golden ages, and yes, the catastrophes that shaped this story.
And just look at this. It really puts the sheer scale of the change into perspective. In basically the blink of an eye, historically speaking, the Arabian Peninsula goes from a collection of scattered tribes on the edge of things to the absolute center of a brand new, unified and rapidly expanding world power. So how on earth did that happen?
Well, it all started with a single, powerful spark, a new faith and a prophet who would unite a people and inspire them to carry a new message across entire continents.
It all begins with one man. Around the year 570, Muhammad was born in Mecca. As the prophet of Islam, he did something incredible. He united the warring Arab tribes under a single, monotheistic faith. His migration from Mecca to Medina in 622 was so important that it became year 1 of the Islamic calendar. But then, in 632, he died, and he left behind this new, united nation with one giant, critical question. Who's going to lead now?
The answer to that question was a title, the Caliph. The word means successor, but it was so much more than that. The Caliph held all the authority, religious, political, and military for the entire Muslim community. This person was the new center of this world, and believe me, the debate over who had the right to that title would shape everything for the next 1,000 years.
And right away, that one question split the community in two. On one side, you had a group, who we now call the Shia, who believed leadership was all about bloodline. They were convinced Muhammad had chosen his cousin Ali to succeed him, and that only Ali's descendants could ever be legitimate rulers. But on the other side, you had a group, who became the Sunnis, who just didn't see it that way. They argue the leader should be chosen by the community, based on their merit and piety. And this initial political fight, well, it would grow into the major religious divide in Islam that still exists today.
Now, you'd think all this internal tension might slow things down, right? Not a chance. The Caliphate didn't just survive, it absolutely thrived, transforming into a dynastic, globe-spanning empire that was about to enter its very own golden age.
First up, you've got the Umayyad dynasty. They moved the capital out of Arabia to Damascus and turned the whole caliphate thing into a hereditary monarchy, passed down from father to son. Their conquests were just staggering. They created an empire that stretched all the way from Spain in the west to Central Asia in the east. They were only stopped from pushing deeper into Europe in modern-day France. But their rule was full of conflict, and it ended in a pretty brutal massacre that completely cleared the stage for the next dynasty.
And that next power was the Abbasid dynasty. They moved the capital again, but this time they built a brand new city pretty much from scratch, Baghdad. And for centuries, Baghdad wasn't just a capital. It was the center of the world. For a long time, it was the largest, wealthiest, and most advanced city on the entire planet.
Yeah, this period became the legendary Golden Age of Islam. This is the era that gave us the stories of the Arabian Nights. It was a time of unbelievable progress in science, philosophy, and art. I mean, while Europe was kind of stuck in the Dark Ages, you had scholars in Baghdad translating ancient Greek texts, preserving all that knowledge, and then building on it to make these huge leaps in mathematics, medicine, and astronomy.
But, no golden age can last forever. The empire was just so huge it became impossible to control from one city. Cracks started to show, and that once unified world, well, it started to break apart.
By the time we get to the 10th century, the reality on the ground is a fractured world with 3 different centers of power. You still had the original Sunni Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad, sure, but now, down in Cairo, the powerful Shia Fatimid dynasty had set up their own rival caliphate. And all the way over in Spain, what was left of the old Umayyads had declared their own independent state. The idea of a single, unified Islamic world was officially gone.
And back in Baghdad, the Abbasid Caliph had lost all of his real power. He had no army, no real political authority. He was basically just a symbolic religious figurehead. The real power on the ground was held by local Persian and Turkic warlords who kind of ruled in his name, but were definitely calling all the shots themselves.
So, this fractured, politically divided world, it was vulnerable. And there was a storm gathering on the horizon, a series of devastating invasions from both the east and the west that were about to shatter the old order completely.
Two major new forces arrive and totally reshape the region. First, from the steppes of Central Asia, come the Seljuk Turks. These guys were fierce Sunni warriors who swept in and took Baghdad. They came up with a new title, Sultan, which means authority, and they basically propped up the Caliph as a puppet while they ran the empire. Then, from Europe, come the Crusaders, Christian armies who managed to capture Jerusalem and set up their own kingdoms along the coast that would stick around for about 200 years.
So now the Middle East is this incredibly complex battlefield of Turks, Arabs, and European crusaders. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared them for what was coming next. An unstoppable, absolutely terrifying force was riding out of the east, the Mongols.
1258. This is the year that everything, and I mean everything, changes.
The Mongol leader Hulagu Khan laid siege to Baghdad, and when the city finally fell, the destruction was absolute. They burned its great library, the famous House of Wisdom, and threw so many priceless books into the Tigris River that people said it ran black with ink. As for the last Abbasid Caliph, they rolled him up in a carpet and had horses trample him to death. 500 years of Abbasid rule and the entire Islamic Golden Age were just extinguished. But even from that level of total devastation, a new order started to rise from the ashes. The story wasn't over. It was just entering a brand new phase, with a new guard of defenders.
And the first of these new defenders are some of the most unlikely heroes you can imagine, the Mamluks. These guys were originally Turkic slave soldiers who were brought to Egypt, but in an incredible turn of events, they staged a coup and seized power for themselves. And get this, just 2 years after Baghdad fell, they did the impossible. They met the Mongols in battle and actually defeated them, stopping their advance cold. Then, for good measure, they kicked the very last of the Crusaders out of the Middle East, earning them the title of the new Defenders of Islam.
So while the Mamluks were holding down the fort in a heartland, another major power was growing up north. Around 1300, a Turkic leader named Osman founded a small state that would eventually become the mighty Ottoman Empire. In 1453, they did what everyone thought was impossible. They conquered the 1,000-year-old Christian capital of Constantinople. Then, in 1517, the Ottoman Sultan marched down, defeated the Mamluks in Cairo, and declared himself the new Caliph, the undisputed leader of the entire Sunni world.
And that conquest really set the stage for a new, stable world order. By the early modern period, the Islamic world was defined by 3 massive, powerful empires, often called the Gunpowder Empires. You had the Sunni Ottomans controlling the Middle East and Europe, the Shia Safavids in Persia, which is the foundation of modern Iran, and the Sunni Mughals ruling over India.
So, our 1,000-year journey ends right here, with the fall of those old caliphates and the rise of these incredibly powerful new empires. The age of a single, unified Islamic state was long gone, replaced by this new landscape of competing global powers. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. After a millennium of chaos, creation, and conquest, what would this new era of global power bring?